everyone, welcome to a new unit, PSPTIS081, Interpret in Complex Monologue Settings, from LOTE-English. This unit describes the skills required to interpret from a source language to a target language in complex monologue settings, preserving the communicative intent of the source language. The unit requires the ability to use a range of techniques to assist the message transfer process and to address problems in delivery. An interpreter in the monologue setting is required to interpret from source to target language in one direction. The physical elements of the complex setting will likely prevent the interpreter from managing the discourse. Interpreting in this setting typically requires high levels of accuracy and accountability, and assignments involving formality, or participants with high status and accountability. The content may involve specialized subjects requiring a high level of subject knowledge or intense assignment-specific preparation. The content of communication may not easily be predicted or planned for, and therefore are unlikely to be opportunities for error corrections. The consequences of errors in communicative intent could have significant implications. The audience in a complex monologue setting typically requires the interpreter to use public speaking or presentation skills. This unit applies to those working as interpreters who work in consecutive and Auslan simultaneous modes, either alone, collaboratively in tandem, relay, or as part of a team. Now let's look at the structure of this unit. In this unit, we're going to learn how to interpret in complex monologue settings through 3 steps. First, we're going to receive and analyze the source message. Second, we're going to transfer that message to the target language. And finally, we're going to learn how to evaluate the interpreting performance. Now, let's go through these steps in detail. Chapter 1 is Receive and Analyze Source Message. So, how do we do that? There are 5 topics in this chapter that can help us achieve that purpose. We'll start with confirming that setting, context, parties, and expectations are consistent with client requirements, assignment agreements, and interpreting protocols. And then we're going to analyze the position and positionality of the translator and interpreter. Next, we're going to identify key information and relationships between different elements, and then analyze the factors that could affect the meaning. Then we're going to identify complexities, key concepts, as well as embedded culture concepts. And lastly, we're going to apply detailed knowledge of specialized subjects and context to anticipate the purpose and intent of the source message and the strategies that are used to develop ideas. Topic 1. Before taking any interpreting assignments, it's very important for interpreters to ensure that the practice could be conducted properly at the correct venue and time. So, interpreters need to confirm through the agencies or directly with clients for specific information regarding the upcoming interpreting service, including its setting, language direction, mode of delivery, and clients' special requirements if there are any. Sometimes interpreters also need to go through a pre-assignment interview or sign an agreement for a specific interpreting task in which the details of the assignment will be reviewed. In most cases, no expectations will be raised in booking, as it is generally accepted that interpreters behave professionally and meet industry standards. In Australia, AUSIT Code of Ethics and Code of Conduct specifies the following industrial standards on interpreters' actual practice. Now, let's look at the conduct issues specific to interpreters. First, Interpreters prepare themselves by obtaining from the initiator or client as much information and briefing as is necessary for the proper execution of the interpreting and treat such material confidentially or as expressly agreed. In terms of the completeness in interpreting, the standards are as following. Second, in order to ensure the same access to all that is said or signed by all parties involved in the meeting, interpreters relay accurately and completely everything that is communicated. Third, interpreters interpret in the first person. Fourth, interpreters maintain the emotions of the speakers in their interpreting and do not soften or enhance the force of messages conveyed or language used. In specific contexts such as in court or psychometric assessments, incoherence, hesitations, and unclear statements are maintained in the interpretation. And fifth, if obvious untruths are uttered, interpreters convey these accurately in the same manner as presented. Now, let's look at the standards regarding the relations with other parties and the interpreting role in dialogue situations. Sixth, in dialogue situations where some participants may be unaccustomed to working with interpreters, the interpreter encourages such participants to address each other directly. Seventh, in situations with a number of participants and where the interpreter is not interpreting aloud to all, the interpreter enables each participant to remain linguistically present where appropriate by whispered simultaneous interpreting or other suitable means, when other participants are communicating in the language not understood by the party or parties in question. And eighth, if anything is unclear, the interpreter asks for repetition, rephrasing, or explanation, informing all participants of what is happening. Ninth, in emergency situations where interpreters may not have had the opportunity to be adequately briefed or given enough time to prepare, or if there are safety or security issues, they communicate this to the responsible person or initiator who is participating in the session. 10th, interpreters keep the participants informed of any side comments made by any of the parties or of their attempts to engage the interpreter in a private or any other conversation. In business or intergovernmental contexts where one or more parties bring their own interpreter, it is appropriate for the interpreter to relay side comments of the other party to his or her own party. 11th, various participants may place competing expectations on interpreters. These expectations may contravene the interpreter's ethics. Therefore, the onus is on interpreters to clarify the boundaries of their role and assist the clients in understanding how to achieve the best outcomes in an interpretive session. Interpreters take care that conversations that may arise during periods of waiting remain courteous but do not become personal, and that information divulged in the course of such conversation also remains confidential. 12th, interpreters testify to their qualifications and the accuracy of their interpreting, and when requested, explain their linguistic choices, but do not testify to participants' understanding of messages. This remains an issue for participants. Now, let's look at the situation of remote interpreting. 13th, interpreters familiarize themselves with the increasing use of technology for interpreting, including telephone, video, and internet interpreting, and diverse recording or transmitting devices. Interpreters who engage in interpreting using these technologies prepare themselves by understanding the purposes of their use and the way in which communication is shaped by these technologies. Institutions, agencies, and clients who use these technologies are encouraged to develop protocols and brief interpreters on their use and on any particular requirements they may have. There are also some specific institutional settings of interpreting work. 14th, where interpreters have roles in addition to that of interpreting due to specific employment arrangements, they clearly indicate when they are acting as interpreters and do not switch roles without notice. 15th, in specific institutional settings where duty of care or security rules regulate the behavior of all participants, such as in healthcare or high security settings, interpreters follow the relevant policies and procedures, combining them with the interpreting code of ethics. By following these industrial standards, interpreters are generally regarded as meeting the expectations on a professional interpreter. Sometimes clients may put some additional expectations on interpreters' practice. For example, clients may expect interpreters use the third person or the title of the speaker to interpret in practice, dress up in a certain manner for an interpreting event, or provide assistance in some administrative or organizational duties. When the expectations and requirements are beyond the scope of interpreters' professional conduct, interpreters have the right to decline and negotiate with clients politely. In all, interpreters must have a good understanding of the expectations placed on their practice.